What is going on, guys?
Welcome back to episode number 7 in this series on creating an MMORPG. I was considering changing the title to something else, but I'm not sure yet. I was thinking maybe a browser game. I feel like a lot of people don't know what an MMORPG is. So let me know what you guys think about that. But anyways, in this video, we're actually going to be setting up this chat window right here. And so I was hoping that I would have had time to animate it and stuff, but I think I'm just going to save that for the part 2. And I mentioned that at the end of this video. But yeah, so I just went over actually building this chat window and getting our inputs and stuff set up so you can start actually typing messages and everything into this. And then I also just reviewed what stuff I had worked on over the past couple days when I wasn't recording. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and be sure to comment below with any suggestions you have, and be sure to like the video too. That helps me out a lot. Alright guys, enjoy. Alright, so here we are back at the beginning of this video, and as you guys already know, we're going to be working on this Illustrator file right here. This is what we're going to try and build for this video right here. As you can see from our design, we just have our input right here, and then we have another input that will actually be our button. And then we have all of the text that will be here, so you'll be able to see all of these things going up and with all the different names and stuff. And so I'm not completely convinced about the color stuff yet, but I feel like this is actually going to be the way the design actually looks, so I'm just going to worry about the colors later and just set up the elements and everything and get it looking like this for now. Alright, so before I start on this video, actually I'm just going to do a quick update on where we are now in our progress on the game, because I have our mining page in here, which I had last time, because the last time I made a video, it was kind of just a review of what I had done. And so since then, I've actually set up this production queue as well. So this right here is showing me the number of completed items I have, and then this is the timer for the items I have. And if I just refresh this, it'll go back to the default that I have it set at right now, which is 640. And then I set up the smithing page, so I moved that back over. So if you see from our original game, the smithing page was right here, and so it's the same exact thing. It does all the same stuff. If you just come back over, it's all works. So I can just go ahead and I could add an item. You're not going to see anything happen just because, well, first of all, the Ajax isn't set up, and also even if it was, you already have items completed and something in the queue. So I have to add something. Normally there would be a little message banner that says you successfully added the items to the queue. So if I did it here, you can see it'll have our little banner, and then you'll see it pop up on the side right here. And I still need to figure out a way to incorporate your waiting items into this somehow, so you can see how many items you actually have total in your queue without clicking on it. And actually, if you click on this now, it will show you your queue. There's a little bit of a bug that I still have to fix because I just moved this over today, and so I still was cleaning it up. But in any case, that's pretty much the update for what I've added so far. I've just been working on cleaning up a lot of this stuff because I have to change a lot of the structures for the pages, so it takes a little while when I move each page over. It's not necessarily just a copy and paste. Yeah, it just has been taking a little bit longer than I'd like, but once I get the skills done, the rest of the pages should be fairly straightforward. It's just mostly the skills are the difficult part, trying to switch everything over. But anyways, guys, let's get started on this chat. So let's take a look at what we have on our design. So it looks, for the most part, like we're just going to have a div, and what I'm going to do is eventually all of these buttons up here are actually going to be windows just like this one. So if we just look at our design here, this is eventually what all of them are going to look like. They're all going to have this, and then you'll be able to display all the information you have. We'll change the sizes of the boxes and stuff, but eventually, it's kind of annoying now because we don't have icons for all the pieces of gear and stuff like that. So it's kind of annoying right now because we actually need to show the names of the items, whereas I'd rather just be able to show a little box with a color for the rarity or whatever, and then show just the icon for the item, and then maybe when you click on it or hover over it, it'll show you the details of it. But we don't have that yet, so that's why the pages here, I just have the pages set up separately right now, and so when you click on these, it'll actually just take you to the page rather than show you a pop-up right now. But the chat, obviously, I have to do a pop-up for because I don't actually have a page defined for that, because we have the chat that's sitting right here on the screen normally. So I'm just going to be building a new chat. So in this case, what we're actually going to do is inside of our header, that we have, we're going to build this chat inside of our actual option. It's a little weird because the option's like this tiny little thing and we want to build the giant chat inside of it, but it's just going to be easier for us to work with if it's just relative to this actual piece right here. So what we're going to do is just jump inside of this, and let's just give ourselves some space here, and we're going to just create a new class, and we'll just do our HD option window, let's say, for now. And so now if we want to just set this window up so we can style it and actually see this thing showing up on our screen here, we'll just go ahead and at the bottom of our CSS, let's just do our HD option window class, and we'll give it a width of, let's say, 300 pixels and a height of 250 pixels or something, and then we'll just give it a position absolute, a left, in this case of, if we want to center this thing, we'll just say that we want to give it a left of 50% and then a top of 50%, and then if we just go ahead and give ourselves a transform, and so the transform, remember, is just going to push us back, or if we translate, it's just going to push us back 50% and negative 50%, but that'll center it on both, which we don't want. So on the Y, we actually want it to sit right below. So we can actually say, like, maybe we want to move it down, maybe 100. Actually, what we'll do is we'll just say we want to do a negative 50% on the X to center on the X, but the top position won't be 50. We'll just say the top position will actually just be like 120% of that container's height. So now if we do that, and let's just say we give this a background of white for now, because I just want to see this thing actually pop up on our screen. So there we go. We have our div on the screen. As you can see, I got the sizes off a little bit. Obviously, it's much too small for what we have designed here. It just needs to be obviously wider and then a little bit taller. So what we could do is maybe make this 400 pixels and then make this 300 pixels high, and we'll see how that looks. So I think that looks a lot closer to what we're looking for. So we're just going to go ahead and go with that size, and we're going to actually move this down a little bit more just to clean it up. It probably go down even more because we need to still fit that arrow on the top that actually like points up. So just to clean this up a little bit more, we'll go ahead and we're going to get rid of our background that we have, but we're also going to just give this a shade in out and then give it the dark gradient class to give it that nice background, and then refresh and see now we have that there. So what we want to do real quick is just add that border because that'll bring everything together. So let's say we wanted to add a 3 pixel solid white border here, and there we go. That looks pretty good. And then the last thing we want to do is just go ahead and add a border radius of, let's say, 10 pixels and see how that looks. So yeah, we could even go a little bit larger on that, and I think that looks pretty good for the box that we're looking for. So we're going to go ahead and build those divs that actually sit inside of this content. So the first thing we want to do is open up this div, and we want to just say create another div with an ID of, let's say, like HD chat messages, and then right under that we'll just do a div with an ID for HD chat inputs, or just input, that's fine. And so now what we can do is we'll actually end up separating those out, but we're going to write a little bit more HTML here. So we're going to start with the actual input. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create divs that sit outside of these, just because it's a little easier to work with when you do that. So we'll do a div, and we'll give it an ID of HD chat. We could call it message, or we could call it, I'll just do text. So that would be the text box that we would actually be typing into, and then we'll go ahead and make another div with an ID for HD chat send. So those will be our two boxes. And now what we're going to do is we can go ahead and actually style some of this stuff. So if we want to jump in here and just do our HD chat messages, and we want to go ahead and give this a width of 100%. And one thing we'll add real quick is we want to add a padding to this whole box. So we'll say that maybe we want to add a 15 pixel padding. And so what we'll do now is we have a width of 100%. And then now let's just say we want to do percentage heights on this. Or honestly, you don't even have to do percentage height. What we could do is say that if we want our bottom div to be let's say like 30 pixels high in this case, we could just say that our height would be the calc 100% minus that 30 pixels that we would do, down there. And then we'll go ahead and just set the chat input up, and that would be a width of 100% again, and then a height in this case of our 30 pixels. And then if we just want to see these things actually show up on the screen, we need to give them a background. So if we just give this a white background, we'll see at least the chat showing up, which I forgot to actually make these IDs, not classes. So if we do that, now you see we have a nice box right here, and see it adds the nice padding around the edges. So that looks really good right now, actually. That I think that's like a perfect size for what we're actually looking for. All right, so now let's just finish working on the inside of this input div that we made. So now we have the text and we have the send. So we want to actually add those elements in this case. And what we're going to do is actually, those are both going to be floated. So we're going to do an HD chat text, and we're going to do the HD chat send. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and give this maybe a width of, well, if we know we want the button in this case to be about, let's say 70 pixels or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to want, but let's say 70 pixels. And then now the width of this, let's just say it's going to be that calc again of that, but in this case, we'll do minus 80 pixels because we want to give this margin left of 10 pixels. So we don't want those to be sitting right next to each other. We're going to give them a little bit of a margin. And now the heights for this, we're just going to make the height 100% for the time being, but we'll end up changing that later. And now what we can do is just go ahead and get rid of our white background there, and let's just paste in the white here and then white here. Okay, so I was like wondering why this wasn't working, because these are like, this one's like sitting on the bottom, and obviously it's because I didn't float them next to each other. So you just have to float left on both of these in order to have them sit next to each other, or else they're just going to default to being on top of each other. So there we go. Now we have our exactly what we wanted. We have our div here and our div here, and we have a nice little space between them. We might even want more space in between them, which obviously is pretty easy to do. Just add another 5 to this and add another 5 to this, and then there you go. You have a little bit extra space. All right, so that's actually looking pretty good. So now what we can do is actually go over the inputs. So if you guys don't use inputs very often for anything, inputs are pretty straightforward. You just want to give them a type, and then in this case we're going to be giving it a type of, well, it's chat, so we're going to be giving it a type of text. So we just have text here. It's pretty straightforward, so we're going to add that one first, and then let's just go ahead and get rid of our white background here. And then we want to just define this now. So let's say we do the HD and we want to do our chat text input. This is obviously the only input that's going to go inside of here, so it's okay to do this kind of thing. Now we want to just go ahead and do our width, and let's just say our height of 100%. And now by default, these inputs usually have like borders and stuff like that, so we'll just do a border of none to make sure that that removes the border stuff that we've got going on there. We can go ahead and give this a background. Actually, I want to see what it looks like right now, just by default. So inputs are usually just, you know, kind of ugly by default. So it doesn't really, it actually didn't look that much different at first, except it got a little bit bigger, which we're going to fix that. But now you can see we can obviously type into it because it is an input now. So if we go ahead and actually fix this, let's give this a margin 0, padding 0. Usually it has all kinds of weird stuff on it. So if we do that, it kind of fixes itself again. You saw we had a little bit going on there. So now we're back to what we wanted, and we can go ahead and actually for the padding, we would actually want to give it some padding in this case. So let's say we wanted to give it a padding maybe on just the left and right. So we'll say 0 on the top and bottom, and then we want to give it a 10 pixel on the left and right. We've got a nice padding, but it messed this up because remember we didn't add the box sizing. So if you're using padding in that case, you would want to make sure you add the box sizing because that's going to fix that problem with the width. So now you can see that actually looks really good now. So there's a nice padding on the text. It looks really clean, really nice. So what we can do is actually, let's change the background because the white is too much. So we want to have, let's say, an RGBA and make this it's going to be a white background still, but we're going to make it transparent so that it's not like really bright. So that looks a lot better and a lot closer to what we have on our actual design. See, because it's really like light here. A couple more things we can do. Obviously you can see that the height of this is still like really tall. Like it's a lot taller than what we have on the other part. And remember, that was just because I said we could add additional height onto the side, but we'll fix that later. For now, what we can do is actually add that placeholder though, just so you guys know how this stuff works. So the input we have here, we're just going to add a placeholder, and then our placeholder text was just chat with us. And we could add like a little exclamation point or something. And then you'll see when I do this, it'll add that placeholder text. And then when I click on it, you know, it'll have the thing, and then when I type, it'll go away. And so that's exactly what we want. It's like pretty cool. So yeah, now this is starting to look pretty good here. So what we can do is actually, let's jump over to our other input that we're going to be using. And technically this doesn't actually need to be an input because we're not actually typing anything into it. I mean, you could just do a div there, but what we're gonna do is actually, I don't usually do it this way, but we'll try to do a type button. And so now you'll see what happens is when I do a type button, you'll see this little button that popped up right here. So we didn't add any styles to it. And actually the reason why I don't do button is because it has a bunch of default stuff on it, like when you click on it, it turns blue and all that stuff. And it's honestly just easier to use a div for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the div. And so actually in this case, we don't even have to have anything, another div or anything inside of this, because we can just use the actual wrapper, this actual wrapper, as the actual button. So we don't need to worry about putting anything inside of it besides just the text. So in this case, we could just add, you know, our p tag in this case that says send. And then you'll see, obviously we can't see the text because it is white. If we change the send background from this to, let's just copy what we did here. So if we copy this background and paste that in here, you'll see it's a lot easier to read now because we have that. And then now just to clean that text up a little bit, we'll go ahead and just add our text align center, and then we'll add our line height of, in this case, we're saying 30 pixels, so we'll go ahead and do our 30 pixel line height. So now you can see the text looks a lot better right there, which is really cool. So now what we want to do is go ahead and add those little border things that we have sitting there. It's not really a priority just because it's obviously not, you know, a huge deal, but we can add them just to make it look a little nicer. And we can also fix the height so it's a little bit shorter, and we can add this little border in here. So what we'll actually do is we're going to say that for the total amount that we want here, we're actually going to increase the amount. So the window right here is, let's see, so the messages right here is minus the 35 or 30, but we're going to change it to 35. So we change these to 35, and then I'm just going to go ahead and fix this to be 25, and then change our 20 or 100% heights to actually be 25 pixels in this case. And now what we can do is go ahead and just give both of these a margin top of 10 pixels. And sorry, I was working on the wrong thing, but this also would get 25 pixels. So we gave that a margin top, and we have a margin left here already. We can add a margin top next to that for 10 pixels. That might even be too thin, but we'll just go with it for now. I think that it'll work out pretty well. And then what we can do is just add those bars in there real quick. So if we go ahead and we'll make one class for the HD input bar in this case, and we'll just give it a width of, let's say, like 7 pixels, I think was what we did for these buttons over here. We gave them about a 7 pixel one. So let's just say it's about 7 pixels, and then the height is 100%. And then we're going to obviously be positioning these absolute, and we're going to move them all the way to the right, and we're going to make sure they're sitting on the top. All right, and so now the easiest thing to do would probably be, if you wanted to give them their different background colors, would probably just be to define the actual background inside of here, just because these don't have classes. But I like messing around with the CSS selector, so we're going to do that anyways. So we can see that obviously both of these bars, and actually we'll give the bars, or put the bars in here right now. So we have our bars, and those are going to have the class of our HD input bar. And we'll go ahead and copy this entire div and put another one in here. And so now if we want to be able to select these in CSS and actually style them individually, what we could do is actually say our HD chat input in this case. And what we're going to do is actually jump inside of this. This means just not all the divs, but just the ones that are directly children of it. So in that case, meaning this div and not the divs that are actually inside of it, these ones. So we're just selecting these divs here. So we do that, and then we go ahead and do nth of type on those, and we'll say 1, and then we have to select the actual HD bar. So we would do input bar. And then we could give this a background. So now let's actually try this. So this should actually do just the first one and not the second one. Hopefully that works. Okay, and so it did work. The only problem is we didn't make our actual divs positioned absolute, or positioned relative in this case. So what we want to do is make sure that the text is position relative and that the send is also position relative. And then we should see that work. So see, now we have our nice border right there, and we don't have one here, but we can add one there just by duplicating this, changing this to 2, and then now you'll see that both of them will show up. And now what we could do is just add that little tiny bar that goes up on the top. And actually in this case, you don't even need to make like a separate div or anything. You could actually just add a border to the top of our input right here. So if all you do is just add a border, in this case top, the border top, and let's just say a 1 pixel solid, and we'll do again white for now just to see. So that shows up nicely there, and what we can do is actually just, even in this case, let's just add an RGBA, and we'll just do a 255, 255, and a 0.2. So it's a really subtle line right there, which is like, it's looking pretty good like that. And we could color it if we want to later. So that's actually a really good start to our chat that we've got going on here. And I'm going to wait to do the rest of it because the rest of it I actually have a module that I use. Alright, so I think that's good for this first video. I'll probably end up making a part 2 for this chat. So we can go over adding this stuff next time. It's actually not going to be that difficult, but we'll also cover some other stuff in the next video. But I think this was pretty good. We got to cover the inputs and, you know, getting all that stuff actually in there and styled and set up, and it looks pretty good now. Let me know what you guys think about this. I know that I'm probably going to end up doing some work on this chat later on, but for now it's a good place to start. We can get all the functionality working and actually showing those messages probably in the next video that I do for you guys. And we'll actually be able to set up doing the animations and stuff so that when you actually click on this, you know, we can have this not displayed and the opacity out, and then when you click on this button it'll actually slide down and fade in for the viewer. Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching video number 7 in this series. Be sure to like the video and comment below with any suggestions or questions you may have. If you guys have better ideas for the chat and want to share them, be sure to leave that down below. I'd love to hear that. And then be sure to subscribe to my channel if you are enjoying the series and the content and want to see more of it. My face will be right here on the screen. So go ahead and click on that and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.